I'm Caleb Giddings with Taurus USA, and I'm here with Dave from FTW Ranch, and we're talking about rifle optics. So, Dave, my optics knowledge is pretty limited. I shoot a lot of handguns, and I shoot a lot of low magnification optics or zero mag optics. My favorite optic is, like a red dot, something with no mag that's really fast that I can use either on handgun courses or close range rifle stuff, because I live in South Carolina, right? My longest shot on the properties that I have available to me is about maybe 150 yards. But up here on my Taurus Expedition, I have the Leupold VX5 HD, which is a 3x15. It's got a fire dot reticle in it, which on low mag means I can kind of shoot it like a red dot, and I like that. And then, but this is just what I've got. There's how many, I feel like there's a million different options for scopes and reticles and magnification. So let's talk through some of those.
Sure, absolutely. And being a hunting school, as we are, we have a precision course and we have a safari course, because there's two applications, or at least two different applications for this. If I'm gonna be going on a dangerous game hunt, say for Cape Buffalo.
Right.
That's not the same system that I'm going to use for a ibex hunt someplace in Turkey or someplace another.
Since I don't know anything about ibex hunting, I'm going to assume from context that's probably a pretty long range shot.
Yeah, or say Marco Polo. I think last year maybe 550 was average shot in really harsh terrain.
That is a long way to reach out.
But it's a different tool for that job. So the lower end magnification stuff right now. So I don't know, do you do like 3-gun shooting, things like this?
I have in the past, yeah. So your
and if you had
LPVOs,
yeah. Sure, if you had an optic or something on something like that, I would imagine, that's not what I do, but I would imagine that you would have something with a very low end magnification so you could engage targets really close. And then you might have a couple of targets out there at 100, maybe even 150, 200 yards, and you need to get out and reach those 300, I don't know.
So you'd be looking at something like a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 8 for that. And explain to, a little bit for my benefit as well as, people watching, but those numbers, right? Like 1-10 or 3-15, that's the magnification that I'm gonna see through the scope, right?
Yep, so 1 power, I've got it dialed all the way down. I got a huge field of view, and so I can pick up a target that's really close, 10 yards away from me, okay? So the high power, so that's the 1 to 8, so I've got all the way up to 8 power. Now my field of view is decreased, but I can see the target, much closer as well. So on a dangerous game rifle for us, something in that magnification, like you mentioned, 1 to 10, good. 1 to 6, 1 to 8, that's gonna work good for you. Then when you go to more the precision side of the house, you're up in the out west hunting elk or around the world hunting sheep, goat, things like that, you're gonna need something with more magnification. And a 3 to 18 in that range works great for me out here. We've got ranges that go out to 2,000 yards. We're not hunting animals at these distances, but it's fun to shoot, targets at distance. And at 3 to 18, we'll be shooting 1,000 yards a lot on the range. Just like I said, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, who wants to try to shoot 1,000 yards? It's like, okay, well, let's try. When I'm doing stuff like that, 18 power is plenty, and then if I go up to a scope that say has even more, 25 power or something like this, it's hot. We're here in Texas, there's a ton of mirage. I normally find myself coming off the magnification some anyway, just so that I don't have so much mirage on target. And 18 power is enough for that. And then if I have to stalk an animal into the brush, then I'm gonna be in a much tighter confined space. I'm expecting to see the animal at a closer distance. I could decrease down to 3 power, and that's fine for that close range engagement as well. So, and it doesn't have to be exactly 3 to 18.
Sure, but it's a good balance point.
Yeah, sure.
That makes sense.
Something in that range.
Talk to me about different reticles. So I mentioned this has got a fire dot reticle in it, which basically means I've got a crosshair, and then I can press a button on the side and get a red dot in the center of it.
Sure. And on the low end magnification,
it's been great, right? Yeah.
On the high end magnification, now we're shooting targets out 200, 300, 400, 500, out to 700 yards. And kind of windy out here.
A little windy.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to compensate for the wind. So a reticle that has some type of hash marks on the inside, whether you're in mils or like this scope, you're in minutes, I want a reticle that has something either in 1 or 2 minute increments for windage and for elevation, right? So we can quickly calculate how much wind hold that we need at 500 yards. And if it's 2.5 minutes and I have a mark in my scope at 2.5 minutes, that's very accurate for me. I can hold exactly that point in the crosshair. If I don't have any segments in the reticle like that, then I'm just gonna have to guess sort of and hold in inches.
Sure.
It's doable, but it's a little bit harder. So, But that would be good for me. Something, the marks could be 1 minute apart, 2 minutes apart. Just something that I'm comfortable with. Think about it this way too. Sometimes you'll look through a reticle and it has a lot of stuff on the inside.
Yeah,
You've seen some
it's
of
a little
those?
busy.
They're very busy, some of them. Well, the more you get to use it, then you're like, man, I wish it did this. And you use it some more and you're like, man, I wish it did that. That's where this is sort of coming from. So let's say you're shooting just holds. Holding for elevation, holding for wind. All right, I need to hold a certain amount down in my reticle. Okay, I've got the mark right there. But, oh, wait a minute, now I need to hold a certain amount to the left or to the right. Now, can you imagine that in your mind? Now you're drawing a line, left or right, and you're coming down and you're just holding that void area of your scope.
Okay.
So now you're thinking, well, I've came down, okay, I'm holding it 5 minutes, I'm doing a holdover. I'm 5 minutes over for elevation, and now I need to hold 3 minutes over for wind, but
Right,
there's
so you're
nothing
trying
there. So now you get that Christmas tree style reticle. Now
Okay.
that bar comes out right there. So now I'm holding down here and over 3 marks. And then you're like, well, I wish I had a few more. And the next thing you know, you've
Your
got
reticle's full
it's
of
pretty
stuff.
cluttered, right?
Right.
But when you know what it's for, then it's good and you want to use it. But if you haven't used holdovers for windage or elevation and you just look through the scope for the first time, like, man, that just got a lot of stuff in there that it's just cluttering my vision.
And I've looked through a lot of those scopes, and I think because my background is in action shooting and more speed-focused stuff, I like a less cluttered reticle. I like a fairly open reticle, but as I've discovered dipping my toe into long range and precision, I also really wanted some MOA lines in my scope.
Sure.
And Leupold does make scopes that have the MOA line option in them. Last thing I want to ask you about scopes, and this is something that has confused me, is first focal plane versus second focal plane.
Okay.
What's the difference and why does it matter?
Well, that ties in perfect to what we were just talking about with reticles, right? So if we do have those marks inside the scope, and we have, let's just say in this scope right here, we would have the crosshairs and then 1 minute marks running left and right. On a second focal plane reticle, as we're going to change the magnification, right? On a second focal plane, that would be true if they're 1 minute apart on high power.
Got it.
Right now, if I start dropping magnification, I'm changing that
reticle
unit.
shrinks.
And the target's going to get bigger and smaller.
Right.
But the reticle stays the same size. Therefore, the scale's changing. So now that I'm on 6 power, those aren't 1 minute marks anymore. They're going to be something else.
So second focal plane, in very simple terms, the target will change size as you increase magnification, but the reticle doesn't change size.
That's exactly right. And if you want to use the crosshairs to measure with, you can do it. And you can do it extremely accurately on high power.
Max magnification.
On first focal plane, though,
the reticle changes size with the target
In
and the
proportion.
units stay the same.
that's right. So if you're on high power and they're 1 minute apart and you go to a less magnification, they're going to be 1 minute apart as well.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what magnification that I'm on if you have a first focal plane.
Perfect.
reticle. And I've always get the question, well, which one do you use?
Which
Dave?
one,
Which
right.
one's better? And like, I can make an argument either way. So we don't have 2 hours, so.
No, but if you have more than 2 hours and you'd like to learn a lot more about reticle type, about how to set up your rifle for long-range marksmanship, you guys should really go online, book a class at the FTW Ranch because it's fantastic. And no matter what optic you end up selecting, it's important to shoot it, to train with it, and to be proficient with your guns and gear.